we're at a real carbon crossroads. And the way we come out of the decisions that will be made in the US in the very near term will go a long way to determining where we go on these crossroads. I don't love to do data-heavy slides, but we're going to do data-heavy slides today because the details matter. The details matter a lot. And so, just want to, if I can figure out how to do this, just want to go to the first one, which looks like every other graph you've ever looked at. But it's not. What this is two lines. This is the number of SRE, small refiner exemption, applications and grants over the last few years. And what's pretty unmistakable if you dig into this graph a little bit is that something has changed. And it has changed in a pretty dramatic way. What this graph shows is that 30 companies that were able to comply with the RFS as recently as 2015, by 2017 somehow couldn't comply. We went threefold increase in applications from 2015 to 2017 for small refiner exemptions. Threefold increase. But at least in 2015, only about half of the applications were granted. By the time we get to 2017, the grants go up 5 times. 5 times more. Now mind you, these were companies that were complying with this law. But somehow, they were no longer able to continue to comply with this law. By 2017, virtually all of the applicants were granted small refiner exemptions. This is a law that is 14 years old for RFS 1, 12 years old for RFS 2. The small refiner exemption was put in place to allow small refiners to come into compliance. It was not to comply and then later go out of compliance. But that's how they've been used. And who are these small refiners? Some of these guys aren't that small. This is an absurd situation. We've got a situation right now in which the entire refining complex in the United States has been destabilized because we've created an incentive for non-compliance over compliance. We've created a dynamic in which you have to cheat to compete. Imagine if you're a company who owns a refinery across from one of these recipients of the small refiner exemption. And you're trying to run your business, and the other guy doesn't have to comply with the renewable fuel standard, but you do. It's as if he doesn't have to comply with child labor laws, but you do. He doesn't have to comply with smokestack emission laws, but you do. How long can you compete with that? It's almost irresponsible in this environment for the companies listed here, all of whom have received small refiner exemptions, not to apply for them. You have to comply. You have to apply for them. You have to. So I don't blame these companies for playing the game the way the game is being played. This isn't their fault. They got a memo that there was a new sheriff in town, and he was giving out small refiner exemptions, as one refiner put it, like Halloween candy. That's not my phrase. That's one of the recipient's phrases. So what happens when this happens? Is this taxpayer money that's going to these refiners? Yeah, It's not taxpayer money that's going to these refineries. It's money coming out of innovation. It's coming out of advanced biofuels players. It's coming out of the agricultural sector. It's coming out of the downstream fuel distribution sector. It's coming out of everybody's pocket who steps forward. And whose pocket is it going into? It's going into the pockets of the folks that are stepping backwards. It's a direct financial transfer of $8 billion from innovators to the intransigent. That's what this is. I'd like to talk for 1 second about PES. PES went bankrupt. When they went bankrupt, they said they went bankrupt not because of competitive reasons, not because they owned a refinery that needed a lot of capital improvements. They said they went bankrupt because of the RFS. Now, that directly contradicts the EPA's own work, which shows that RFS compliance is built into the crack spread. This isn't me saying this. This is the EPA that issued these SREs. They're the ones saying that the RFS compliance treats everybody equally because it's in the crack spread. Nevertheless, PES went bankrupt. EPA granted them waiver on half of their RIN requirements. They came out of bankruptcy not long ago. And the latest is they're struggling. Is that because of the RFS? No, it's not. And the most insidious part of this is that they get their workers, get the unions, hyped up about this notion that somehow these workers' jobs are threatened, not by management, but by the RFS. It's time we speak the truth on these matters. This stuff has gone on too long. It's not an RFS problem at PES. So let's look at how these guys have been doing. How bad has the world been for these refiners? It's been not bad at all. Refiner economics and returns have outpaced the economy as a whole. These guys didn't need these small refining exemptions because somehow they were all about to go out of business. They were profiting, and their share prices were going up at a rate higher than the economy as a whole. So while these things were being given, these refiners were actually doing quite well. I wonder if DOE's analysis that the EPA is now waiting on to evaluate the upcoming SREs, whether it includes, did these guys make any money? Because if it does, most of them are doing quite well. And the logos I've had up over before, you can look them up if you want. I know the data. Most of them did just fine. But they still got SREs. So what was the original logic? I told you this was going to be data heavy. What was the original logic of the RFS? What I've got on this slide is a supply curve of, it's only a subset of advanced biofuels, it's the biomass-based diesel pool. So for each bar, the width of that bar is how much volume that producer produces. And the height of the bar goes to their economics. And the straight up and down line is the demand line. So the collection of the bars creates the supply graph. So, and the straight up and down lines are the demand line in an RFS environment. So quite simply, in a mandated environment, the demand curve is straight up and down, and as the demand goes up, the line moves to the right. So sorry for the Econ 101, but this is the fundamental logic of the RFS. When in 2007, when they did RFS2, they thought we need to do certainty for 15 years out so markets can understand that that demand curve is going to keep moving out to the right. And it'll send a signal to all the suppliers to be trying to get as far left on this supply curve as possible. This is not a tough thing. Every single morning at our business, and probably at most of yours, you get up to fight to try to move to the left. And the way you move to the left is you invest, and you innovate, and you push, and you get to scale, and you do all the things you need to do to get to the left. And why do you do that? Because Congress gave us a 15-year forward look. Why did Congress give us a 15-year forward look? They gave us a 15-year forward look so that we would do exactly that. That we would invest. That we would push our costs down. That we would innovate. That's what Congress did. This is what the EPA did. The EPA, after they set RVOs, actually reduced the RVOs through the SRE process. They took, what they did by doing that is push that demand curve hard to the left. As that goes hard to the left, it makes uneconomic all of the bars to the right. And all the bars to the left stop innovating. Why? Because the line that connects the supply line and the demand line is the price line. And as the price comes down, the ability to reinvest profits goes down. So SREs seem innocent enough, but they're hardly that. They've caused investment to stop, innovation to stop. What did the RFS originally try to do? It tried to provide stability, drive innovation, and cut costs. It's not a complicated law. So has it just been hurting the advanced biofuels guys? Has it just been showing up as a problem in the Midwest and in agricultural sectors? Absolutely not. The press would have you believe that this fight is a fight between the Corn Belt and the oil patch. That's the farthest from the truth. There are plenty of companies throughout the supply chain that have been making billions of dollars investments throughout the supply chain, much of it in the distribution side of the business, the truck stop operators, the grocers, all the way down the line, and then all the way up to the integrateds. The oil industry is hardly aligned on these issues. There is a substantial schism within the oil industry on these matters. And some have spoken openly about the SREs stranding their investments. I thought it was noteworthy earlier this week when Shell announced that it was going to bail out of AFPM. AFPM, as most of you know, is the primary representative of the independent refiners. And as many of you know who fight these political battles, they have not been particularly supportive of the RFS over the years, to say the least. Don't think that we're fighting this fight alone. Shell did something really important this week. They're on our side. And we're on their side. They know they need to innovate. They don't want to see that demand curve go back to the left. They're on record saying the SREs work against them. They need us to innovate. They need us to invest. And Shell's not alone either. BP has made it very clear that they take carbon reduction very seriously. And you know what they need? They need, in their own words, consistent, transparent policy. Are the SREs that? They are not. But these guys don't consume the fuel. Who consumes the fuel? It's folks like FedEx, who also have their own sustainability efforts. And they need who? They need the Shells and the BPs and the World Energies and the REGs and everybody else to work together to get them the product they need. But who are they working for? They're working for Amazon. How in the world is Amazon going to do this if FedEx can't do it? And how is FedEx going to do it if BP and Shell can't do it? And how can BP and Shell do it if we can't do it? That's what the SRAs are doing. It's all the way through the economy. And it makes the U.S. uncompetitive. It's not just a couple of gallons around the edges. This right now is the EPA's moment of truth. This is not Andy Wheeler's problem. He inherited this from Scott Pruitt. Scott Pruitt is gone. The decisions on the 2018 SREs are Andy Wheeler's. And he's got a decision to make. He's got to decide whether he's going to continue this charade, this indefensible charade, or whether he's going to make things right. He's promised transparency. How in the world can a company get an SRE and not say who they are? The only reason we know who got them is because they have an obligation to report it publicly. It's material. But if you put in an application for hundreds of millions of dollars worth of relief, put your name on it. The fact that the EPA doesn't even reveal who's putting these applications in is indefensible, and it cannot continue. Now, Andy Wheeler has promised transparency. We'll see. Reduce carbon impact. That's what we do. So we're doing that in different ways at our 8 sites throughout the U.S. and Canada. In California, which is the leader in this work, we recently bought, as Jim mentioned, the former Altair facility, which makes aviation jet fuel and renewable diesel fuel. We're in the midst of a conversion project that will take that from about a 45 million gallon facility to about a 300 million gallon facility. But that is not where the story ends. The story is just beginning there. We are working with renewable natural gas projects to bring in renewable natural gas into the facility so that we can make renewable hydrogen there and provide renewable natural gas to fleets there. This is not about biodiesel or renewable diesel or renewable jet or renewable natural gas or solar or electric. It's about all of it. We are so mutually dependent. So we're in our California project, we're working on all of it. That project is our attempt at demonstrating that nothing right now is the end-all, be-all solution. But the way progress happens is that you move. The way that we ended up with Silicon Valley is because we had a president who made a moonshot. And Silicon Valley grew up in an environment in which vacuum tubes were not going to get us to the moon. So we went to transistors, and then we went to semiconductors, and now we lead the world out of Silicon Valley in technology development. We're at that moment now. The way these technologies grow is not because you have the perfect one today. They did not have semiconductors when President Kennedy said that we were going to go to the moon. Well, we got there. How do we get there? We get there through solid, consistent policy, which is implemented consistently, administration to administration, like Congress intended, and we'll get there. None of these solutions are the end-all, be-all solution today, but the only way we get there is if we keep investing. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.